When property speculation collapses and the bunker class run out of credit, they reach for the state. They build a special vehicle to turn debt into an asset. Their loss becomes our shared recovery. We talk about the famine as hunger, but it was also liquidation. All these dying people meant rents collapsed. In 1849, the Crown set up the Encumbered Estates Court. Irish historians call this the 19th century NAMA. They passed this bill. The object of this bill is to facilitate the sale of encumbered estates in Ireland. This is always framed as a reaction to landlords becoming insolvent and the British Crown needed to step in and save them. But like all good disaster capitalism, to sell you a solution, they must first manufacture the problem. The famine was obviously very convenient for this purpose. They were able to force the sale of these debt-loaded estates. But the famine wasn't the only pressure. The Crown had also passed the Rate in Aid Bill, which was loading Irish landlords with extra rates. Lord Brougham, at the time, House of Lords, called it a monstrous arbitrary power. And he explains in Hansard debates how a first mortgagee can wipe out a second by forcing a sale at crash prices. He flags the collusion risk. An owner and a first mortgagee can sell to an ally, erase the junior creditor, and keep the estate with no fee. He said that it was giving commissioners rule-making power with the force of law, and by law he means the force of the British Army. The Earl of Glengyle called it confiscation. This was highly controversial stuff, even in Westminster. The function of the machine is that it takes distressed property debt, create a special state body with extraordinary power, set up a fast-track court with 3 commissioners and start forcing the sale of estates that are in debt. Remember, these estates are only in debt because of rising rates and taxes from Westminster and the fact that their tenants are dying of starvation. These special powers gave buyers of Irish land and property the ability to sidestep any legal obstacles and gave them a guaranteed title against all the world, which was the only claim to the land British courts would recognise. If you had against all the world, that could not be challenged. This attracted buyers, and in 1849, they started to come. Bankers, speculators, cattlemen, they bought 5 million acres of Irish land at half price. And they evicted 50,000 families in 5 years. Most of those people died of famine. The state called it improvement. This was clearance for capital. And Ireland became a laboratory for property cleansing. Wipe the people, sanitize the title, sell it again. What happened in 2009? Different century, same playbook. Banks and developers inflated a property bubble, and the bubble burst, and the Irish state creates NAMA. And history repeats itself, and €74 billion of Irish loans is sold to vultures. NAMA's job is to protect the financial system. It hoards the property and then drip feeds it back out to protect the pricing. Blackstone, Cerberus and Lone Star are now feeding on Irish homes. Cerberus alone holds €18.75 billion in Irish property loans. Rents have gone up 82% in 12 years. NAMA opened Ireland up to a new wave of financial colonization, exactly like the Encumbered Estates did. In 1849, the language was Encumbered, Improvement, Regeneration of Ireland. And in 2009, it was Impaired, Distress, Stabilisation of Ireland. Both times, the bullshit is to sanitise what's really happening. Using or misusing the apparatus of the state to dispossess some people and enrich others. In 1849, the only people who won were British speculators, and in 2009, the only people who won were British speculators. Well, Israeli speculators this time. 160 years, we are still living under the same structure. And it still has the same function. Create a crisis where the only solution is your dispossession.